So I like to call the Aventon Aventure 2 my favorite go almost anywhere bike. Now I say go almost anywhere because this bike will take you pretty much anywhere, urban areas and a lot of places off the beaten path. So grass, gravel, dirt, pretty much anywhere except those technical mountain biking trails. This bike is not a mountain bike and I would not recommend it for that. But pretty much any place else, this bike is great. And as an adventurer, I love a bike that I can take off the beaten path and explore with. And this bike has a lot of features that make it perfect for that. This bike is a Class 2 e-bike, and that's important to know in case there are regulations where you're going to be riding it. Now with the Aventon app, it is possible to unlock the speed on this bike such that it becomes a Class 3 e-bike. In my case, I've kept it locked at the Class 2, but you can unlock it and it can go up to 28 miles per hour. And this bike does have a 48 volt, 750 watt brushless hub motor with torque sensor. Now I love that torque sensor. It feels natural and it's there with the power that I need when I need it. And speaking of power, there are 4 new pedal assist levels on the Aventon Aventure 2. There's the Eco mode, there's the Tour mode, there's the Sport mode, and then there's the Turbo mode. In addition, this bike does have that nice throttle, which is by your left thumb. And personally, I love the throttle placement when it's done like this on e-bikes. It's very accessible. You don't have to do any weird, awkward movements of your hand. It's right there, so you can easily tap it. And the power kicks in very quickly. Some of the time when I have taken off from a full start, I'm basically doing a wheelie. So be ready for the power, because it's there. Now, when it comes to safety features on this bike, I really like the way Aventon did the integrated lights, which also have that turn signal functionality. Those lights are really bright and they definitely grab attention. So if you're in an urban area or around cars or other bikes, it's really easy to signal which way you're going. And I love that safety feature. In addition, I love it that Aventon includes that rear rack as well as the fenders. You don't have to pay extra for those. Those are included by default. And the rear rack has a very rugged feel to it, as do the fenders. And those fenders are great when I'm riding on a muddy or really dirty trail, which I do plenty of that with this bike. Those fenders really get the job done. And another feature I love about this bike is that front suspension. That suspension does a really good job cushioning bumps. I had quite a few bumps in this footage that you're seeing here from this particular ride, and I barely felt them with that. I didn't feel the need to stand up when I was approaching those bumps. I felt like I could sit comfortably on the seat and there weren't any problems there. Speaking of which, the saddle on this bike is very comfortable. I've done several hours at a time on this bike and I don't feel sore afterwards. The seat is definitely comfortable for those longer rides. Now, some of the other basic features on this bike, the bike does have that 8-speed Shimano drivetrain, which is great, and those gears are very important. If you're doing some hills, you definitely want to use your gears properly, because the pedal assist will not work properly if you have it in 8th gear and you're trying to go up a hill. So you want to make sure you're shifting down and up properly for the situation where you're riding. And of course, this is a fat tire bike, which makes it great for riding on blacktop or off blacktop. And it does have those large 26-inch wheels. And the tires, of course, are 4 inches wide. And those tires are massive. I love that larger size. And the tires seem to hold up well. I've run over quite a few sharp rocks with them. And there aren't any marks on the tire. My tires didn't deflate, anything like that. And as far as the frame design goes, I like this frame. It's not a foldable frame, but what I like about it is that single-butted aluminum alloy frame, so you don't see the welds on the frame. The frame is basically one piece as much as possible, and I really like that because I don't feel like the bike's going to snap on me. I've ridden some cheaper bikes before where the welds are pretty obvious, and the welds don't always look that great. Love it that it's as much of a continuous single piece as is reasonably possible. And the weight of this bike is 77 pounds, so it is definitely a solid bike. And if you're going to be transporting it on a bike rack, you're definitely going to need a heavier duty rack than just a standard bike rack. I actually got the bike rack from Aventon. I bought that bike because it can fit 2 of these bikes, and my wife and I both love to ride. And so I don't have to worry about it. And the bike rack was actually very affordable from Aventon. When I did price comparisons with other bike racks that could hold heavier e-bikes like this, the price on those often ended up the same or slightly higher. So my logic was, why not get a bike rack by the same company that made my bike for maximum compatibility? And another thing I love about this bike that you do see on nicer e-bikes is this does have those hydraulic disc brakes, and the brakes are very responsive. They work very well, and I don't have any concerns about the brakes. And of course, if you're curious how much payload this bike can hold, Aventon does say it can hold up to 400 pounds. I weigh about 170, and the frame felt very solid. And another feature about this bike that I don't feel like it's talked about enough with e-bikes, the battery in this bike is UL 2849 safety certified. There are a lot of cheaper e-bikes out there whose batteries do not have that safety certification. And I've heard about fire starting with those bikes. That's always a concern for me anytime I bring an e-bike into my garage. I want to make sure the battery on the bike at least meets those minimum UL certifications, because a battery on a bike catching on fire is a legitimate concern. So I do like it that Aventon does go the extra mile with making sure their batteries are safety certified. And when it comes to any service you want done on this bike, or if you just want to look at it before buying, Aventon does work with bike shops all across the United States. There's more than 1,800 bike shops that offer service of this bike, which is really cool. A lot of e-bike brands, they operate online, but they don't really have any physical presence where you could take the bike to have it serviced. So I really like that about Aventon as well. And of course, I don't want to forget to mention the display on this bike. The display is simple, but at the same time, it is a color display and it's backlit. So that backlit LCD display is pretty easy to see even when it's a bright sunny day, which I really like. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, you can use the app on your phone and you can connect it to the bike via Bluetooth, and you can collect all kinds of data with that app, such as your distance, your average speed, and much more. This bike is very easy to put together. I've put together a lot of e-bikes, and this one is one of the easier ones, and the packaging was phenomenal. There's a lot of paper and cardboard in this packaging, but not much styrofoam or plastic, which I really like from a recyclability standpoint, but also the way they designed their box where you can lift it off. That's great because I could easily unpackage the box myself. I didn't need to lift the bike up out of the box. Instead, I could lift the lid of the box up off the bike. So props to Aventon for really thinking about their box design as well. And another thing I want to point out is the tools that come with this bike. Pretty much every e-bike manufacturer has their own set of tools that they send with your bike. But in the case of the Aventon Aventure 2, all of their tools are integrated into a single tool that can fold up and fit in your pocket. It's basically like a foldable knife or a multi-tool. And I really like that because I don't have to bring along a bunch of wrenches, screwdrivers, Allen wrenches, anything like that. I don't need to bring along a box awkwardly in a backpack. It's just that little tool that I can fit in my pocket and have it along in case I need to tighten anything, in case I need to loosen anything or make any adjustments. That tool is right there, and it's so small and easy to pack away on my adventures. So the Aventon Aventure 2 is my favorite all-around adventure bike. I've taken this bike in a variety of riding situations. I've ridden on blacktop, grass, gravel, stones. I've ridden up and down some steep slopes, and I've ridden on plenty of flatland as well. And this bike has done great. Like I said earlier, I just don't recommend this bike for mountain biking. But I'm hoping to get to try this bike out in some snow as well, because biking in snow is a lot of fun. I'm just waiting for some snow so that I can do that. So if you'd like to check out the Aventon Aventure 2, I've linked to this bike in the description below. Aventon is frequently running sales on this bike, including steep discounts, as well as sometimes free accessories, sometimes even a free battery. And the battery for this bike is about $500, so when they have that sale running, that's a phenomenal price as well.